If this goes on, don't panic. Bringing hope to the world through speculative fiction.
Hello, it's Alan, and welcome to another If This Goes On, Don't Panic column. Today we have a new episode of Book Navigator by Navarre Bartz. Navarre Bartz is a recovering academic writing about the intersection of technology, society, and environment. Originally hailing from Missouri, he now lives in Virginia with his wife, child, and feline overlords. His work has appeared previously on the Sifwa blog, Optopia, and the Almanac for the Anthropocene, the Compendium of Solarpunk Futures. You can find more of his musings at solarpunkstation.com or the Solarpunk Station YouTube channel. I hope you enjoyed this column. Don't forget to let us know what you think on Twitter, Mastodon, Blue Sky, Facebook, or Newsmast, or leave us a review. Thanks.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of Book Navigator here with Navarre Bartz. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about my feelings and takeaways from Another Life by Sarena Ulibarri and When We Hold Each Other Up by Phoebe Wagner. When We Hold Each Other Up by Phoebe Wagner has a main character that's a storyteller, so I feel there's a lot of interesting discussion, whether overtly or as subtext in the story, about how stories shape the reality we live in, both for the main character as well as how we've ended up where we are as a civilization based on the sort of stories we've told about ourselves and who our heroes and villains are. Early in the novella, there's an exchange between a couple of the characters that I feel frames the overall feeling of the book. "The world changed," Eduardo said. "Where the wolves were supposed to keep the deer moving, to keep the rivers playful and the meadows wild, these places changed. Those parts of the world eroded, uprooted, died. Some people saw what was happening and realized they couldn't listen to those stories anymore. The stories were wrong. Wolves weren't monsters, they helped keep everything thriving. But so many others only saw monsters. They kept killing the wolves even though they weren't supposed to. That's Brand," I said. "He was told the wrong stories and now he's stuck." I ran and hopped over a log while Eduardo ducked under it. "But how do we know if we learn the wrong stories?" He passed his palm over a hemlock trunk. "I don't know. Be open to changing your mind." One of the things that really struck me about the story is since the characters are mostly on the move, when they come to a new community, people ask how they choose to live in the world. I've been thinking a lot about pluralism and uncommons lately, and I feel one of the big themes of this book is how there's no one right way to live in the world and in harmony with nature. The big bad is basically a group of people who've decided that their way is the best and everyone else has to do it their way. As in Another Life, the vestiges of colonialism and capitalism trying to reassert their dominance are the real troublesome entities in the story. The ending of this novella may be polarizing. There's definitely an ending, but it eschews many of the more common final confrontation narratives to quickly cover the work that has to be done as a community to overcome such insidious, creeping threats as this. I think it might not 100% scratch that narrative itch I'm expecting from years and years of reading the traditional hero's journey. But I think it moves us toward a better type of storytelling that's more in tune with the solarpunk ethos of there is no one central hero, we have to work together. No one's going to come and save us and we have to do it ourselves, but that's going to take a long time. Some of this likely also has to do with the novella format. It's certainly not the first novella I've read where time gets a little weird or not necessarily stretched out the same way as it might be in a novel. And I've certainly read novels that would have benefited from that. So I think some of that is a change in narrative and some is a change in pacing due to the novella structure. But I think it does work, and it's still satisfying, but it feels a little strange, but I think in a good way. In either case, you should totally read this story. It's excellent. In another life, we see an optopia existing inside a post-apocalyptic world where overall the world is in a better place, but it's not quite as different from our current world as the world we do see in when we hold each other up. The community we find ourselves in provides ecosystem services to the larger world and is somewhat left to its own devices, even though they're seen as sort of a weird hippie commune in the desert. The central theme of this book really feels to revolve around questions of identity and whether someone can overcome both generational trauma and also the things they've done either themselves or in a past life, good and bad, a sort of sins of the past self evaluation. While we're looking at this, I think it's not nearly as dark as the Earthseed books by Octavia Butler, but I feel a lot of the questions raised by the main character in evaluating their own life choices and where they fit in the world remind me of that main character from Earthseed. Also, just like in Bioluminescent, I was thinking a lot about how do we be good ancestors for future generations. And this novella, since it also includes elements of reincarnation, really brings up how do we be good ancestors to ourselves, which is an interesting thing to think about. A passage I found particularly interesting, especially looking back at it now, having finished When We Hold Each Other Up. Admitting it now, all the power I'd eschewed for so many years flowed into me like an electric current. I felt stronger, taller, indestructible. But I didn't need claws and teeth, fists or guns to wield that power, because I understood clearly what I'd known the day I intercepted Justin's presentation and what Ramsey had known too as he spun his lies, that words had the power to shape reality. I think both of these novellas do a really great job of showing how the stories we tell ourselves really shape the direction and the context we live in. If we keep telling ourselves that we're doomed and that we can't do anything about climate change or inequality, these problems are going to persist. We can't just say they'll take care of themselves and they'll be fine without doing anything, but I believe that's the real power of solarpunk, is to change the stories we're telling ourselves about how we come out of both the climate crisis and the vast amounts of inequality we see today. We can see a path forward. I feel like both of these stories really, really bring that to the forefront in a good way that doesn't feel too on the nose or preachy, but it's still explicitly stated. And this last excerpt from Another Life really, I feel, frames maybe solarpunk in general. Perhaps everyone was envisioning their own version of another world that could have been. I tried, but all I could conjure was the desire for more people to find the type of community that circled this lake, that encircled this table. Maybe from now on we can keep making things better without making them worse first, I said, to break the silence. Build a better future in spite of the atrocities of the past. Mickey gave a dour burst of laughter. I sure hope so. That's all we can do is hope, Cindy said. No, I said, that isn't all we can do.